Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The New York Rangers defeat the New York Islanders 9-2 at UBS Arena to keep their very, very, very slim playoff hopes alive for another day is really all it is. Rangers have 3 games left, and I it, it's hard to take much satisfaction out of this win, given the fact that they are not going to make the playoffs, and really it would have been better, as far as draft purposes, and some other reasons as well if they had lost this game. So pretty frustrating. I mean, as far as the Rangers season series versus the Islanders, they sweep them, winning all 4 games. Their first season sweep of the New York Islanders since the 2003-2004 season, which ironically, and I remember this, and that was really one of the worst Rangers seasons and there were many bad ones around that time. That may have been the worst, but for whatever the reason, the Islanders were actually, that was a team in the Islanders that made the playoffs. Rangers just totally had the number that year. And I've been saying like lately, the last few seasons, the Rangers have definitely gotten the better of the Islanders, and that was certainly the case this year. I believe they outscored them when you combine the 4 games, I think 23-5, which is significant. Really, all 4 games were lopsided. Now, the scores in some of them may have been a little misleading, but nonetheless, and the Islanders are not a very good team. Uh, it is interesting though, like the Islanders, and part of it is because of the score, to be fair, but the Islanders end up with 46 shots on goal. Igor Shesterkin was yet again fantastic. And he ends up making 44 saves on the night. Um, and the fact that Ilya Sorokin was not in net for the Islanders certainly hurt their cause. If he was in goal, it wouldn't have been like this, right? I mean, the Rangers could have certainly still won, and it could have been lopsided, but this was just completely embarrassing. As Marcus Hoberg was the starting goalie for the Islanders, he was actually pulled briefly in the third period for goaltender Tristan Lennox, who made his NHL debut, and then Wab put Hober back in. Kind of a wacky situation, and here's the crazy thing too. This was not a game full of power plays. The Rangers were 1 for 1, so of course the Rangers, you know, uh, make easy work on the power play in their one chance, and when the season's over. And as well, the Islanders, they get one of their 2 goals was on the power play, right? But the point is that like the Rangers certainly beefed up a lot of as far as plus minus numbers go. Every single Ranger was at least a +1 on the night, which is, I think, the first time that it happened since 2021 in a game the Rangers, that Ranger Flyer game, right, where Mika Zibanejad put up crazy points. I think that was a 9-0 final, if memory serves me correct. So, these games, they're rare, they do happen, but, um, again, it's hard to really feel great about it. Um, but, you know, you gotta play out the games in the schedule. I mean, to be fair, like, if they had lost 9-2, as much as I would have in some ways preferred that, there'd be criticisms headed their way, right? So you're kind of in a lose-lose situation, however you look at it at this point, unfortunately. But definitely, it had an exhibition type feel to this one for sure. This was not a Ranger Islander game that had any sort of animosity. It was, the building seemed like it was half empty, and, that's kind of what happens here. And the Rangers really jumped out to that early lead. So let's, as we normally do, let's discuss the lineup. And on defense, K'Andre Miller did return, right? So whatever he was dealing with, illness wise, or what else, he is back in there, and Zach Jones is out of the lineup as a result. So back to K'Andre with Will Borgen. And they had a pretty good night. And again, like, that's going to be the case in games like this where your team scores 9 goals. I mean, Keandre and Borgen and then plus minus could be misleading, but they were both a +3. For forwards, an interesting sort of decision by Laviolette. One that's a little disappointing, but the results were the results. Brennan Othman was a healthy scratch, which came as a little bit of a surprise to me. And Gabe Perreault was a healthy scratch again, right? So it wasn't one of those things where Perreault replaced Othman. It was Juuso Parssinen who played his first game in quite some time, and he actually scored he got his first goal and point as a Ranger on the night. Actually, Parson, a goal and 2 assists. As I think one of those assists was tacked on later. Wow, he actually, so is it? He had 2 assists two of the most random assists possible, especially the last one late in the game to make it 8-2 and 9-2. So a very unlikely and quiet 3-point night for Parsonen. So figure he will probably be in the lineup next game just based on that alone. And Brett Berard had 2 goals. So there were some younger players contributing, Berard being the more interesting one than Parsonen, of course. But that meant that, yeah, Othman and Perot were not in the lineup. And look, the fact of the matter is there's a good chance, barring injury or something. And I guess we'll discuss, I guess, the parameters as far as where the Rangers are, as far as what can cause them to be eliminated. And it's pretty simple, actually. Like going into the Ranger Carolina game, which is a ABC game, an afternoon game. Um, Tomorrow night, Montreal plays at Ottawa, and all Montreal needs is 1 point to eliminate the Rangers. That's all it would take. But if they lose in regulation, you would be going into that Carolina game with them alive, and therefore, I would suspect that they would go with the same lineup, considering what happened in this game. Doesn't mean you're gonna get the same result, but once we get past the Carolina game, we'll give a little preview for that Carolina game and kind of what's at stake for Carolina. Sneak preview, nothing. But still. So, it's just Shesterkin versus Marcus Hogberg, not Ilya Sorokin, which again was significant in this game. The goaltending couldn't have been more different on both sides. And Igor has been, in a really bad stretch for the Rangers the last, I don't know what you want to call it. We'll call it 1 month. I mean, it's really more than that, but Igor has been one of the players that his level has risen, and he's done everything he can to keep them alive. And it was another strong game for him, even though the story is going to be the 9 goals the Rangers scored. So as far as the lines were as well, one thing I should also mention is the fact that um, Brodzinski moves up to play with Panarin and Trocheck. So they're rewarding him, which I'm fine with. I mean, Brodzinski deserves it. Again, he's been one of the few bright spots. It was actually a quiet night for Brodzinski. He was one of only 2 forwards, him and Chris Kreider, to have no points on the game. Um, but he was with Berard and Trocheck. They kept the JT Miller line with Cooley and Zibanejad. And I don't think I mentioned it last episode where like Mika has certainly been a lot better on the wing. Now, maybe it helps playing with JT Miller. That is possible, but just in general, Mika seems to be just more effective, certainly offensively and points wise on the wing instead of playing center. And it's something that if he's on the Rangers next year, which is more likely than not that he will be, that's something that needs to be considered and a major decision as well, right? Because then if you do that, then you have to get a center, because all you'd have is JT Miller and Trocheck, not including Carrick, who is, a 4th line center. But so what that meant was you had a line of Parsonen centering Crowder and Lafreniere. And what stands out there is like that's a sign to Alex Lafreniere. That's a straight demotion. No question about it, right? Crowder is what Crowder is at this point, right? We know that he's been down the lineup and, but for, Lafreniere to be on that line with them, that's a clear signal that, and it's deserved. And so that left you with the 4th line or 3rd line, whatever you want to call it, or a 3rd line, which was effective. Carrick centering Berard and Rempe. And that line had a couple of goals later in the game. So, um, Rangers really controlled play from the outset, and did respond to what was an embarrassing showing versus the Flyers. I wasn't sure. You don't know with this Ranger team. You don't know what you're getting on a night-to-night basis. And so they could have easily just to shit the bed. I wouldn't have been surprised by that, but they did come out strong. Again, whatever can frustrate you as a fan, right? Because it's to the point where I was rooting for them to lose, as I was against the Flyers, and they lost that game. But they're going to end up in kind of a no man's land situation, which is going to make things really interesting as far as, and that's a conversation for another day, as far as that 1st round pick with the JT Miller trade and the conditions. It's setting up for kind of a spot where you don't know exactly what they're going to decide to do if they have the decision to even do it, because it's top 13 protected. If they finish above that, then it's out of their hands completely, which may not even be a bad thing. But Mika Zibanejad scores at 317, his 18th goal of the season from JT Miller and Cooley. Um, Kind of similar to last night in a way where it was a 3-on-2 goal, and this line had a couple of 3-on-2 odd man rush goals. It was a turnover by Ryan Pulock uh, in the neutral zone, and brought in by I think JT Miller kind of caused the turnover slightly. and he passes to Cooley, back to JT Miller, who makes a really nice shot fake. And it kind of fooled Hoberg, and it put Zibanejad in a situation where he had a bit of an open net from far out, but he scores. So Zibanejad, because at this point you're kind of looking at sort of whole numbers and not milestones, but Zibanejad is 2 goals away from 20. So, um, curious to see if he hits that. Doesn't really matter if he does, but he is, if nothing else, kind of the point totals are certainly increasing for Zibanejad, despite what has been a really, really disappointing year for him. So 1-0 Rangers at that point. And then at 12:49, that line scores again. Will Cooley, his 19th goal of the season. That's another one, right? Will Cooley 1 goal away from 20. It'd be nice to see him at that from Zibanejad and JT Miller. So another semi 3-on-2. This one, a little bit more further towards the net where it developed. Just Miller getting it into Zibanejad. And Zibanejad kind of takes a shot. It was a shot pass almost, like where going for the rebound off the pads of Hoberg, and Cooley's right there to clean it up and make it 2-0 Rangers. Then you have the one penalty of the game for the Islanders, which is Noah Dobson holding Johnny Brodzinski. So even though Brodzinski doesn't end up on the score sheet, he does draw that penalty, which leads to a power play goal, which of course now they do it no problem. And it would be Vincent Trocheck, his 24th goal of the season from Panarin and Adam Fox. An easy play where Trocheck just, the Islanders gave Trocheck way too much room in front, where he kind of just took the Panarin pass. Trocheck was like behind the net at first, then he just moved to the front and easily scored to make it 3-0. And then for good measure, they score again. Panarin scores his 36th goal of the season from Trocheck and Fox, where Fox sets up a 2-on-1. Bad defense by the Islanders there. As the puck goes by, Romanov, D'Angelo's the only one back. Trocheck kind of waits, and Panarin basically scores into an open net to make it 4-0. So, an embarrassing period for the Islanders, who, had already struggled versus just the Rangers. I mean, forgetting about anything else, the Rangers had won the first 3 against them. I thought maybe for them, there'd be a little bit of motivation to not get swept, but we know what happens here. So 4-0 Rangers. We go to the second period, and the Islanders certainly picked up the play for sure. And Igor made a lot of saves. The Islanders had 20 shots on goal in the second. However, the Rangers do take a 5-0 lead at 8:19 of the second. Yusuf Parson scores his 5th goal of the season, but his first as a Ranger from Alexis Lafreniere. This should have been stopped by Hoberg, right? I mean, the first period goals weren't so bad on his part, but this one was just a simple wraparound goal that just needs to be stopped. And I think Parson was probably even surprised it went in. So that gives the Rangers a 5-0 lead. Keandre Miller takes a delay game penalty at 14:40. Rangers kill that one off, but then Parson and Crosscheck smashing at 18:48, and the Islanders finally get on the board there with a power play goal. Again, Ranger penalty kill has struggled lately, and that was kind of one of their strong suits for most of the season, but it's Siplikov's on the power play, his 10th goal of the season from Holmstrom and Pelech at 19:06. So that makes it 5-1 as we go to the third period. And, again, the Islanders were controlling play. And a lot of that is, look, the Rangers we know are not a good team as far as defense and preventing chances and things like that. So that's going to happen. But also when the score is as lopsided as that, the trailing team is typically going to dominate play in zone time. So we go to the third, and again, the score is 5-1. And at 7:54 of the third, Brett Berard scores his 5th goal of the season from Rempe and Carrick. So a nice goal from that line. And this was a play where just a good passing play from Carrick to Rempe, and then Berard on the backhand scores to make it 6-1. And then, so at that point, Waugh takes out Hoberg, and he brings in Lennox for his NHL debut. And in that time, Hudson Fasching scores his 1st goal of the season from Cizikas and Engvall at 10:52. Just a shot by Cizikas that goes off the back wall, takes a favorable bounce to Fasching, who takes a slap shot and scores to make it 6-2. Then at 12:37, Brett Berard scores his 2nd goal of the period, 6th goal of the season from Carrick and Keandre Miller. So Keandre Miller with a poke check to break up the play away from Bo Horvat. Carrick is able to find Brett Berard, and he has a sort of a 2-on-1, doesn't pass to Rempe, takes the shot and scores against Lennox, who they then pull. So, again, strange on the part of Patrick Waugh, but Hoberg back in, and the Rangers score a couple more goals, and Alexis Lafreniere gets on the board, his 17th goal of the season from Fox and Parsonen. at 15:54. And another odd man rush situation here where it was, Fox kind of making the play in the defensive zone, and it was Lafreniere and Carter on a 2-on-1. Lafreniere, with some patience, is able to lift the puck over the shoulder of Hogberg to make it 8-2. And then another just random goal, and it's Panarin scoring his 37th goal of the season from Parson and to make it 9-2 at 18:51 on a play where Panarin just shoots it from behind the net. I think it goes off an Islander defenseman, off of Hogberg and end. That's just one of those nights where everything was going in for the Rangers, and they win by a final score of 9-2. So Rangers record improves to 37-35-7. So with 3 games to go, they sit at 81 points. They're 6 points back of Montreal. And it's a matter of when, right? The elimination's coming soon. It could be as early as tomorrow night when Montreal goes to Ottawa. All they need is 1 point, and that would eliminate the Rangers. So it's a matter of, we'll see if the Rangers are still allowed going to Carolina. It doesn't mean much. At this point, it's just really a technicality, really, because it would take an absolute miracle for them to somehow make it into the playoffs. So Rangers do bounce back. They, get the season sweep against the Islanders, and in very convincing fashion. They go to UBS Arena and defeat the Islanders by a score of 9-2.